Gotcha, internet. Rambling on, not sure where it's going with that.
Something about like, you've been talking about diet and exercise, so you're heading into sort of organisation as a coping mechanism?
Yeah, like, organisation is definitely, I mean, it's definitely the coping mechanism that I am helped by, and I think a lot of people are helped by. It's the same as with any disability, generally speaking, because the world is not set up for people with disabilities, and so you have to make your own arrangements, and organising and knowing what you're going to do about them is very helpful. And having routines. I mean, you know, you don't have to be completely set, but having sort of like plans about when things are getting bad. Because I've managed to program myself into a plan about my panic attacks. Now I've had panic attacks for a long time, and I'm trying to think, well, how to describe a panic attack now. Like, maybe I should leave a link down below to a Wikipedia page about panic attacks. But one of the things that they tell you in counselling about panic attacks is, don't worry, you're not going to die. Right? Because panic attacks feel so bad that some people think they're going to die. And it's just like, everything revolts in your brain, and it's like, fucking panic stations! All the little men are just running about, throwing stuff out, Titanic moment, lifesavers everywhere. They're all like foghorns going off. And I just get like super anxious, like amazingly fight, flight, or freeze. And I just feel so sick, and I feel like my eyes have gotten huge, like they're just like I'm a porg. God, very much like a porg, because like my eyes feel huge, my mouth feels like a gaping huge hole, and but also a bit, I tend to feel a bit like a Wendigo in the middle of a panic attack. Like, because I just feel as though someone scraped out my insides and that I'm just a cage of bone and fear. But I saw people having panic attacks. But yeah, I saw my relatives having panic attacks, and that, I mean, I sort of said this to a counsellor, and they were like, oh, is that awful? And I was like, no, because I saw that the panic attacks ended. I saw that they weren't fatal, and that they were awful, but they were finite. And, are you okay there? And I think that was the best thing. I saw that there was ways you could deal with them, and that because my family had been having them forever, that they knew there were ways to deal with them, and they did them. And I mean, I always remember there was one panic attack I had before I even properly acknowledged that I was depressed, and I was just having it going through Manchester town centre, and I was just a wreck on the bus, and I sort of thought, how can everyone not see that I'm this huge beast of fear? That I sort of, you know, expected everyone to turn around and I would be this giant, like, screaming Wendigo. And yet, I wasn't. I was just this person that no one noticed. And I was just being like, you can't scream, and you can't cry, and you can't do anything until you get home. But once you get home, you can do these things. And so I was just barreling it. I got off the bus, and I was barreling it down the road, and I could, like, see my mum's house there, and I was like, we're gonna get there. And I got there, threw my coat and bag off, and just, like, exploded with emotion. And I just was like, I slid down a wall and was crying and like, awful. And my mum hugged me and she said, and this sounds awful, but she said, welcome to the family. And again, the counsellor I was telling this to was like, oh, that's awful. And I was like, no, because it all of a sudden was like, that's what you're going through. This thing that everyone else has gone through. It quantified it. And so knowing what it was meant I could deal with it. Like, when it was just a fear that came out of nowhere, it was a horror film. When it was acknowledged that that was a panic attack and that I'd seen people have them and I knew how they were dealt with, it just eased everything off. And I now have like a routine, and it's so ingrained that I just go into it immediately. when I have a panic attack, I try and find my, if it happens outside, I go and try and find my way to either my home or the home of someone I trust. I get there and I, hopefully if someone's there, I tell them I'm having a panic attack. We can sit, we can hug, and they can like pet me, and then either they or I will make a cup of tea, and then we'll have the cup of tea, and then I'll think, then the panic attack will end. And you're all right there. I know people have had really long ones. Mine are sort of not generally, once they've started properly, not the bit where I'm like, you just need to get somewhere before you can embarrassingly cry everywhere. But once I start embarrassingly crying, I know it's finite, and I know that eventually the cup of tea will work, like some sort of magic potion. But I know that the cup of tea is about sort of someone caring for you, or you caring for yourself, and it's about something warm and solid, and it is a representation that the panic attack is finite. Once I finish the cup of tea, I'll finish the panic attack and we'll move on with life. Like, I know that I will feel better once the panic attack is gone. This counsellor was very much like, oh my god, it's so awful that your family, and it's like, has been depressed at the time, and I'm like, yeah, but we know how to deal with it, and seeing other people just made it so much easier for me to acknowledge that this is a real thing, that this is a thing that can be dealt with. And my aunt had a bad time with depression a couple of years ago, and there was a bit where she turned to me and she sort of went, does it ever feel better? I feel like the most awful shit, does it ever go away? And I went, it does. You have days when you feel like the most awful piece of crap in existence, and then you have days when you are happy as Larry. It does stop. And I mean, if your depression is non-permanent, then it's just a blip that you can rise out of, and you can put that in the past. But even if your depression is a lifelong thing where your brain chemistry is not working right, it is only portions of your life. There are always good days. There are always bad days, but there are always good days, and it's a continuous thing. It's a continuous existence. So, yeah, in a way, people are like, oh, this counsellor, oh, it's terrible that your family is like this, and it's like, I know, but it's given us a lot of strength, and we know how to look after each other, and we know how to look after other people. We're always really good about we say things like, because we're all very open about our depression, and then other people go like, oh, I've had depressive incidents. And go, oh, great, how did you deal with them? Or like, are you much better now? How are you going? And people, random strangers, will tell us completely deep inner shit about their depression because sharing it with someone is important, and because I think a lot of people have been like, that's some bullshit, that's not real, that's just in your mind.
Permission to intrude slightly.
Yeah.
I still remember the day you told me you're having a panic attack, because of that openness that you were brought up in, and I had nothing like that. You weren't having a panic, you were making a spectacle of yourself was what you were doing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, no, I remember that. John had a panic attack whilst we were having salsa dancing lessons, and I could feel that it was getting worse for him because he was embarrassed. And I said, no, it's a panic attack, I know how to deal with these. And he sort of went, oh, is that what those are? And it was I felt really awful for him, to have those and not know what they were is even more awful than having them. And so I could sort of sit with him and I could say, it's all right to other people, he's just having a panic attack, we'll deal with this, I know how to get through this, he'll be fine later. Because a lot of people are like, oh, what's happening, what's the issue? And if people crowd you when you're having a panic attack, that can be awful, because a lot of the time you feel like you can't breathe, so people getting in your space is like, it's not helping me! So it was, yeah, I like that. I find a lot of joy and strength in helping other people with these issues. Especially because so many other people don't, that they just like think, oh, it's bullshit, or, you know, oh, it's not real, oh, it's, I mean, I was just like, oh, it's all in your head. Yeah, so is the rest of human existence. Have you not noticed that every one of our senses and our body feeds into the thing between your ears? It's your brain. That's where you live. You are this system of electrical impulses in a meat chunk in a skeleton. That is all that you are. So when it goes wrong and that affects you in your brain, that's real. Yeah. And I mean, I think the fact that the human brain can overcome ridiculous things, like, I mean, there's people who have, I can't remember what syndrome it is, but where they don't feel pain, and so they just, like, break legs and keep walking on them because they're not feeling the pain. So it's like, people can walk on broken legs not feeling the pain because of the brain. So that if it makes random pains happen that aren't obviously physical in your body, that's still a real thing that really happens to you, a real person. I get very fierce about this, as you can tell. Partly because there's the bit of me that says, like, oh, you're experiencing it, so it's bullshit because I'm the depression voice and everything you've experienced is bullshit and you're a waste of space. But there's the knowledge that I'm also talking about then my sister, my aunt, my mum, my grandma, my uncles, my great-granddad, my great-grand-uncle. And it's like, these are people I know and love, and thinking bad things about them is not happening. No one's attacking them. I will protect these people with my life because they're my family and I love them. And even then, I mean, a lot of my friends have depression or various mental issues, and so it's like, you're attacking my friends. And it's that thing where you can be kinder to other people than you can to yourself. And then the kinder you are to other people, the more it's easy to be kind to yourself, I think, because you stop and think, wait, I would never say that to someone else. Or you think, oh, wait, if someone else was in this situation, I would say this, and that would help them. I'd say, like, it's okay to take 5 minutes to yourself if you're feeling stressed. It's okay to take a day off if you just can't handle it today. It's okay to occasionally spend all day in bed crying, as long as you don't do that forever. But, you know, it's alright to feel fucking awful, because you'll work through that feeling. So yeah, I mean, it's always really annoying that I'm still depressed, even though I feel really healthy towards it and have a lot of coping strategies. But it's a crazy brain disease! I feel a lot better now. Thanks, Internet. Yeah, ooh! Like, comment and subscribe if you've enjoyed my ramblings about depression. Tell me about your own depressive experiences in the comments, because I've literally said I love that. Or, you know, what you've learned from this about depression. And yeah, bye-bye, Internet. Bye-bye.